So here we are, let's talk about fractions. I'll help you pass math with satisfaction. Put your thinking caps on and let's go to work. Everybody ready to learn? And everybody said, oh yeah. Alright, let's go. So what's a fraction? I'm glad you asked. It's part of a whole, and that's a fact. When it comes to fractions, there's two main parts, numerator and denominator, and it's not hard to remember. What is what? Think denominator down, and then you know your numerator's up. Now when it comes to fraction, it's important to know what each part tells us so we can be a pro. The numerator tells us how many equal parts we have, like how many slices of pizza we ate at our friend Chad's. For example, maybe we ate a total of 4 slices. 4 would be our numerator, and my advice is to next think about how the pizza's divided. How many equal parts is the one whole pizza divided into? Well, in this case, the whole pizza was divided into 8. So 8 is our denominator. It's pretty straight. So now we have the fraction of 4/8. It shows how much pizza that we ate. 4 slices out of a total of 8 equal slices that made up the whole pizza. Alright? Now it's time to switch it up. Now we ate 4/8 of the pizza pie, but this is not in simplest form, and I'll tell you why. Because 4 and 8 have a common factor besides 1, so we can divide by this factor. I'll show you how it's done. First, let's list the common factors of 4. We got 1, 2, 4, and then there's no more. Then let's list the common factors of 8. We got 1, 2, 4, 8, and that's it, mate. Now we compare our factors and look for what they have in common besides 1. We want the greatest factor, so the biggest number, son. The greatest common factor of 4 and 8 is 4, kids. So divide 4/8 by 4 and find out what simplest form is. So we have 4/8 divided by 4. What we do to the numerator, we also have to do to the denominator. 4 divided by 4 equals 1. 8 divided by 4 equals 2. We want to make sure we do not forget our fraction bar. Now we can see that 4/8 is equal to 1/2. Alright, so I could say I ate 4/8 of a pizza that night, or I could say I ate 1/2 of a pizza, and I'd still be right. We call 4/8 and 1/2 equivalent fractions. Notice that equivalent is similar to the word equal. Equivalent fractions have different denominators, but they are equal. They have the same value. Notice that 4/8 and 1/2 are the same amount of pizza. Now, let's say that I was really hungry and I ate 8/8 of a pizza, all just me. If I ate 8/8 of a pizza, I ate the whole thing. So we say that 8/8 is equal to 1 whole, because we have 8 slices out of 8 equal slices in the whole. The same works for 4/4 or 3/3. They all equal 1 whole. Alright, but let's get really crazy and say I ate 9/8. Yeah, it's true, I'd probably have a stomach ache. Because our numerator is bigger than our denominator, we call this fraction improper. But it's the same idea. To show 9/8, I have to look at my numerator and denominator. The 9 in the numerator tells me that I ate 9 slices of pizza. And the 8 in the denominator tells me how big each of those slices were. That is, that the pizza was divided into 8 equal slices. When I draw my first pizza, I notice that I can only shade in 8/8. To show 9/8, I will need to draw another pizza that is also divided into 8 equal slices. Now's a good time to bring up the fact that improper fractions are always equal to or greater than 1. Once I have drawn another pizza, I will need to shade in 1/8, so that I have shaded a total of 9/8. Now looking at this picture, we can see that we have 9/8, but we can also see that we have 1 whole pizza and 1/8 of another. We could therefore also say that we ate 1 and 1/8 of a pizza. This type of number is called a mixed number because it includes a whole number and a fraction. Alright? Fractions, 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 fractions. Know them well packed with satisfaction. If you need more help, start the video over or stick around for extra practice in the closure. Alright. Stick around for some extra practice.
Thanks
for sticking around for some extra practice. So first things first, I want to go over some of the vocabulary from the video. So the first term we mentioned in the video was fraction. So I'm going to go ahead and ask you, what is a fraction? So go ahead and take a couple seconds to think about it. And if you said that a fraction is part of a whole, you are correct. So let's say that we had one whole cake, for example. I really like to use food examples. And let's say that cake was divided into 4 equal pieces. Let's make sure our lines are a little bit better so that our pieces are equal. And let's say that we ate 1 piece of that cake, 1 out of the 4 pieces. So we have 1/4. 1/4 would be our fraction because it's part of a whole. Next, there's 2 parts to a fraction. Go ahead and see if you can remember these 2 parts. And if you said numerator and denominator, you are correct. So if we have 1/4, which would be our numerator and which would be our denominator? Go ahead and think about it. If you said 1 would be our numerator, you are correct. Which leaves 4 as our denominator. Now in the video I gave you a great tip. This is how I remember numerator and denominator. If I can't remember which is up and which is down, I think denominator down. So the D in denominator and the D in down, it reminds me that the denominator goes on the bottom, and then I automatically know that the numerator goes on the top. Now it's important to not only know which is which, but also to know what they mean. Do you remember? Okay. So our numerator shows us how many equal parts we have. So like we just had in our picture, if we have 1/4, our numerator tells us that we're looking at 1 piece of cake. For example, if we're using cake. Now our denominator tells us how many equal slices are in the whole cake. Okay, so the numerator tells us how many equal parts we have, and the denominator tells us how many equal parts are in the whole. Okay, so in this one we have 1 slice of cake out of a total of 4 equal slices in the whole. Okay, something else we talked about in the video was simplest form. Now this is for people that are more experienced with fractions. So when we use simplest form, we are looking at common factors in both the numerator and denominator. So let's go ahead and review. 4/8 is not in simplest form because 4 and 8 have a common factor besides 1. So if I were to list the common factors, let's go ahead and do that. Go ahead and do them with me. We have 1, 2, and 4. And then I'm going to list the common factors of 8. Go ahead and do it with me. 1, 2, 4, and 8. Now this is a great example because 4 and 8 share another common factor. They share 2, 1, and 4. Now we're looking for a common factor besides 1 and the greatest common factor. So we're not looking at 1 or 2. We want the greatest common factor, which is 4. This tells us that if we divide 4/8 by 4, we're going to get simplest form. And simplest form means that the numerator and denominator do not have any common factors between them besides 1. So let's go ahead and do that, just like in the video. Now what we do to our numerator, remember we have to do to our denominator. So 4 divided by 4 and 8 divided by 4. 4 divided by 4 is 1, remember, and 8 divided by 4 is 2. So 4/8 is equal to 1/2. Now if we were to list the common factors of 1 and 2, let's go ahead and do that. Common factors of 1 would be 1. Common factors of 2 would be 1 and 2. The only common factor we have between them is a 1. If we were to divide to divide 1/2 by 1, we would still get 1/2. So our simplest form is 1/2, okay? So I want you to go ahead and do a practice problem using, let's do 3/6. So can you make 3/6 into simplest form? Go ahead and try. Pause the video if you need to. Okay, now let's do it. We're going to list our factors. We have 1 and 3, and our factors of 6 are 1, 2, and 3. Our greatest common factor is 3, so we're going to divide 3/6 by 3. So 3 divided by 3 and 6 divided by 3. 3 divided by 3 is 1, and 6 divided by 3 is 2. So again, 3/6 is also equal to 1/2. Let's go ahead and do a little bit of a harder one. Let's say we have I don't know that this one will be harder for you, but go ahead and try it. 5/15. Go ahead and put it into simplest form. Then when you're ready, go ahead and start the video back up and check your answer. So what we're going to do is we're going to list the factors of 5, 1 and 5, and the factors of 15. 1, 3, 5, and 15. Our greatest common factor is 5, so we're going to divide 5/15 by 5. 5 divided by 5, and 15 divided by 5. 5 divided by 5 is 1, and 15 divided by 5 is 3. Okay? Another term that we talked about in this video was an improper fraction. Does anyone remember what an improper fraction is? Yes, an improper fraction is when the numerator is bigger than the denominator. So for example, in the video, we had the improper fraction 9/8. Another example might be one like 16/14. Anytime the numerator is bigger than the denominator, our fraction is improper. Now the last vocabulary term that we mentioned was a mixed number, and a mixed number is when we have a whole number plus a fraction. Okay? So now we're going to go ahead and I want you to do a couple of practice problems. So first, I want you to draw a fraction for 2/3. We'll start out easy. Go ahead and draw a fraction for 2/3. Pause the video, and then when you're ready, come back. So to do 2/3, I'm going to go ahead and look at my denominator first. The denominator tells me how many pieces I need to divide my whole into. 3. 1, 2, and 3. So each of these is 1/3. Now, 2 is telling me how many equal parts we have. And we have 2. So we're going to go ahead and shade in 2/3. So if you had this, that would be correct. It doesn't always have to be a circle, however. So we might choose to draw this if we had a rectangle with 3 equal pieces, and we could also shade in 2 of them. That would still be 2/3. Okay? Okay, let's go ahead and try something a little bit tricky. I want you to do 5 halves. So pause the video, come back when you've drawn a picture of 5 halves. All right, so to draw 5 halves, I'm going to look at my denominator. That tells me that I'm dividing my shape into halves. I'm going to use circles, but you can use squares as long as they're divided into 2 equal pieces. Here I have 2 halves. So I'm going to need to draw another shape to draw 5 halves. Now I have 1, 2, 3, 4 halves. I'm going to need to draw another shape to show 5 halves. Now I have 1 half, 2 halves, or 1 whole, 3 halves, 4 halves, or we could say 2 wholes, and 5 halves. So if your picture looks something like this, you are correct. Now drawing improper fractions is a little bit tricky, so we're going to do one more. I want you to draw 8, 6. So to draw 8, 6, first I'm going to look at my denominator, and you're right, we're going to draw into 6 equal pieces. Now in one whole, I have 6 slices, or 6 slices in a whole, which tells me I'm going to need another shape in order to do 8. Okay, now I'm going to shade in 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So if your picture looks something like this, then you have 8, 6. Now remember, 8 is how many equal pieces we have, and 6 is how many pieces a one whole is divided into. Here, each whole was divided into 6 equal slices, or 6 equal parts. Now we're going to get really tricky. How could we write this as a whole number and a fraction, so a mixed number? So go ahead and look at our picture. And first we're going to ask ourselves, how many wholes do we have? Correct, we have 1 whole. And how much is left over? So we have 2 slices left over out of 6. So we have 2, 6. Now lastly, we're going to get even trickier. So if we look at 2, 6, what factor do 2 and 6 have in common? Exactly, a 2. So we are going to divide by 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. 6 divided by 2 is 3. So we can also put mixed numbers into simplest form, and we want to make sure we leave our 1 out in the front. All right, thanks for sticking around for some extra practice. If you don't have it down quite yet, go ahead and watch the video again. Thanks for hanging out with me.